Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I'd like to continue on with our journey, our discussion through the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2021. And that brings us to that title, which has been designated by Criterion at spine number 1074. The film is from 1996, and the filmmaker is Olivier Assayas. And the name of the work is IRMA VEP. This is the work from 1996, and this is from writer and director Olivier Assayas, and it stars, among others, in its really wonderful, splendid cast, people like Maggie Cheung and Jean-Pierre Léaud and Nathalie Richard and Bull Augier and others. This is the mesmerizing, creative, and very memorable work known as IRMA VEP. So what is this film about? I think we could focus in on what could be described as the essential plot or story structure, which is focusing on this particular modern day film crew in France or in Paris, and they are attempting to, under the directorship of the director played by Jean-Pierre Léaud, and they are trying to create or recreate or remake the 1915-1916 silent film serial work or collection of works from Louis Feuillade, which is known as Les Vampires. So this work, IRMA VEP, is about a film crew that is trying to recreate or remake Les Vampires in this modern setting with these different actors, one of which being an actor from Hong Kong who is coming here to Paris to play a key role in this, the role of IRMA VEP. And this particular person is none other than the one, the only, the great Maggie Cheung. So we have this very famous Hong Kong actress coming to Paris to recreate this very iconic role within this remake of a silent film serialized classic, Les Vampires. So this plot or this story structure, I think, sets the stage for a number of various points or levels that this film is operating on, or a number of threads that converge or intersect in this particular body of cinematic expression that is also very stylish. It's very stylized. It has a certain look that is very cool and very well put together, but it is also, or I should say, and it is also a film that I would suggest is very emotional and very intimate. There are moments where the film goes into the intimate or very personal details of these various characters that we meet of this film crew. For example, certain relationships that might be developing or perhaps on the verge of developing, say, between the Maggie Cheung character and some other characters, for instance, the Jean-Pierre Léaud character or the Nathalie Richard character, respectively, and how those follow through, and we see their seemingly daily conversations that may or may not lead to further developments in those particular relationships. So this is one aspect, I think, that this film operates in on a very, I think, clever way. And it also does so with a a means of maintaining a sense of mystery and maintaining a sense of maybe dramatic intrigue in terms of what certain relationships might lead to or might not lead to, what certain people are, who certain people are they who they really say they are, or maybe there's something more to their particular past lives or past backgrounds or life stories, as it were. And this also provides the opportunity on a daily level basis to get to know these people, again, not just their personal lives, but also their professional lives too, because after all, this is a film that is, in essence, a film about making a film. And in that context, we have, therefore, shots or sequences that are following certain members of the crew around. We see the various stresses and daily strains and issues that come up that producers have to deal with. We see the director trying to deal or trying to express what it is he wants to capture creatively and artistically as a cinematic artist, and also dealing with the various actors that will be appearing in this particular work, including, of course, Maggie Cheung. And speaking of which, the appearance of Maggie Cheung, who plays a character that is described, or that could be described as being very much like who she is in real life, in terms of being a very famous Hong Kong star, a megastar, and she is coming here to Paris to take part in this French production. But when she arrives, we also get glimpses of what her career is at this point in time, little stories or little anecdotes that she shares on set as we as viewers watch. And these anecdotes have to do with the Hong Kong film industry. And so this, and certain directors that she has worked with or she wants to work with. There's also this type of meta play on interviewing her and her discussions on the state of the film industry and what the situation was that led her to want to be a part of this particular production in the first place, to play the role, the iconic role of IRMA VEP. So we have that connection, which also leads to this discussion of Hong Kong cinema and the cinema industry, also leads to or coincides with a type of maybe meta or broader discussion of the cinema industry writ large. And this is taken in the context of the state of French cinema as we see it, or as Olivier Assayas portrays it in this particular work. There is a certain sense of homage, if you will, because of the references to silent cinema, in particular, of course, to Louis Feuillade and Musidora and Les Vampires, etc. There is also this sense of a cynical aspect, or maybe a critical eye, that is cast upon the cinematic process of the modern day. And we see this in terms of certain questions given in scenarios of interviews that we see captured as part of the filmmaking process. We see the questioning or the examination or exploration of the struggle or the tension between the two separate or different points, as it were, of the cinematic process that are often commented on: art versus commerce, and what, if any, is the connection between the two. Is there some kind of balance that can be struck between these two seemingly opposite sides, or are they never to be able to find some kind of balance? And I think we see here in the film IRMA VEP, which is about a crew trying to make a film that is a remake or a retelling of a work from the early silent period. I think we see both a type of homage and also a critical eye cast upon the current trends or the current stages of cinema making, or the cinema industry and the French cinema industry in particular. But it's not, as I say, it's not wholly critical, because there's also the sense of the homage, there's also the sense of the celebration of the artistic and the triumph, or the potential triumph of the artistic vision. And the real creative capacity and the real room for stylized zaniness of a real, I think, remarkable type of quality. And so these and other aspects, I think, are really commented upon in a very clever way through the cinematic techniques of Olivier Assayas and his filmmaking cast and crew. So I think this film embodies a lot of various levels. And I should say too that going along with the idea of the use of imagery as a means to create a sense of homage, or perhaps to take a step back to create a type of link to a cinematic past, and by virtue of such links to cinematic days gone by, we automatically see comparisons between the past and the present, and whether the present can really hold up to the icons and the images and the legends of the past. Maybe it can, maybe it cannot, but maybe it can. And maybe we see this in the real vivid way that we have Maggie Cheung as this main character in this film within a film, or the film about making a film, and her role in this film being made is to play the role of IRMA VEP. And IRMA VEP is one of the very remarkable and iconic roles from the original Feuillade work, Les Vampires, which in that time played by the very famous legend Musidora. And so we have the look of Musidora as she appeared in Les Vampires in 1915-1916, and that is being maybe replicated, but also there's slight variations on that theme as being presented by Maggie Cheung, and the various choices that the costume designer and the director are trying to employ within this film within a film, and the reliance on, say, modern day references, not just silent cinema, but also modern day blockbuster epics, Batman Returns and Catwoman and things of that nature. So, but it's also the representation, or the image that is embodied by this iconic Hong Kong megastar, and within this world of French cinema, or this film within a film, or a film about a film crew that also has as part of its cast, or as part of its members, icons of French cinema as well, Boulanger and Jean-Pierre Léaud. So we have this play on the use of this imagery and the links between the past, as well as the augmentation, or reminding us of what cinema is now, or what it has been up to now, from the recent past up to now. So I think we get a very rich and textured viewpoint of the cinematic process, and it's not wholly cynical, it's not wholly of an homage, but I think it's a real interesting mix of the two, as well as a mix of other textual layers that I was trying to suggest earlier. And it also, maybe just to conclude this particular part of the discussion, it also provides a lot of stylistic punch. There is a type of intimacy that's captured that is also relying on this use of the camera, and there are certain uses of black and white stylization that I think are very effective, but that never gets in the way of the sort of intimate focus that we are always provided with as viewers of this film. We always are with these characters, and there are a number of characters that are involved because it is a network of various people that are working on this particular film, and their human relationships as well as their professional relationships. And it's in that discussion we get all the style, we get all the substance, and we get all the intimate discussions, and we get all the relationships. And I love how this film always keeps a balance between and among these various, say, sources of cinematic energy. In other words, there's a lot of substance, or I'm sorry, there's a lot of visual style that is very effective, and there's also the winks and nods to cinematic past. There is the homage. There is also the playful, almost meta aspect of the film in terms of the critical eye that it's glancing, and that may have even a broader sociological impact that I think filmmaker Olivier Assayas does refer to in some of the supplements. So there's a lot going on within the frame, but what is so remarkable is that even with so much going on, it always keeps us in the loop when it comes to these characters and what it is they are going through, and maybe the concerns or the questions that they have in the context of those very intimate and very real types of human relationships that are developing between and among these various people. So I really appreciate that very much. It is a swirl, a ball of energy going in many different directions, I think quite forcefully and very remarkably, while still maintaining a focus, an anchor, a center on this particular story of human beings. So this is the very fascinating work from Olivier Assayas, and this is the work called IRMA VEP. This is the Criterion collection release of this film, IRMA VEP, at spine number 1074. This is the Blu-ray edition. It happens to be 2 discs for the Blu-ray edition. So disc 1 has the film itself plus a number of supplements. Disc 2 has yet more supplemental material, and I'll try to describe these as we go along. But speaking of the film itself, we have, again on disc 1, we have the film, which is described as being based on, or purported to be, the new 2K digital restoration of this film with the approval of Olivier Assayas, with 5.1 DTS-HT for the soundtrack. So this is, I think, a very exciting presentation. And then when we speak about the supplements, as I say, we have a number of supplements on the first disc, and then yet more supplements on the second disc. So this is quite a packed release in that regard. Speaking of the first disc, let us look at what the supplements are on such disc. The first of such supplements is a one-on-one conversation with the artist Olivier Assayas, and this is Olivier Assayas on IRMA VEP, and this is described as being from January 2021. This is approximately 28 minutes. It is essential, it is wonderful, it's great. He is very expressive and very articulate, and goes into a number of details about the circumstances as to the making of this film and his involvement. He mentions, for example, certain people like Claire Denis and Atom Egoyan, and the circumstances that had their participation or their involvement to a certain degree, but then ultimately it became this film by him known as IRMA VEP. And speaking of which, he also talks about Maggie Cheung, and also Olivier Assayas speaks about his viewpoints or perspectives on a number of other filmmakers and their works. For example, the works of Ho Xiaoxian, and how he was admiring his work and studying his work. He also talks about Kenneth Anger, and also his focus on the works of Kenneth Anger, and also in the context of IRMA VEP and the idea of this is a film about filmmaking. he makes references to other such films or other filmmakers which have similar types of films in their respective filmographies. And these comparisons have been made elsewhere as well. So comparisons made to Fassbinder or to Truffaut and their respective films about filmmaking. So I think this forms a really great foundational basis for the discussion by Assayas in the modern day about this work that still resonates and feels fresh and feels very alive and very, very modern. It's been described as being a modern or postmodern work. And I think that is going towards the type of metatextual nature of the film, as well as the stylistic visual flair that remains very alive and very fresh and invigorating. And so it's wonderful to hear Assayas' comments in, as I say, 2021 about this work that still feels so fresh and alive. Because it is filled with so much boundless energy. So this is a great conversation to check out if you can, so please do so. This is the conversation one-on-one with Olivier Assayas. That's not all, because we then get another conversation with Olivier Assayas. This time he is sitting down also together with Charles Tesson, and this is from 2003, approximately 33 minutes. And the two of them are speaking about their perspectives on French cinema criticism, the role or their work as critics, and also the importance of cinema watching, is in particular Hong Kong cinema and 1984, and also the importance of the discovery of various works from Hong Kong cinema, and how that informed, in particular, how that informed people like Olivier Assayas, and how, of course, that creates these very important linkages with what he made, which was this film IRMA VEP, and all the connections between French cinema and Hong Kong cinema that seem to be part of the concerns of the artists when we watch this particular work, IRMA VEP. So for these and other reasons, I think this discussion with these two gentlemen from 2003 is also very informative. So please check this one out too if you can. Again, approximately 33 minutes. And then we get another supplement, which is also from 2003. This time we have the two actors, Maggie Cheung and Nathalie Richard, and they, of course, play characters that we follow for a very significant component of this film, IRMA VEP, and their relationship, both personal and professional, as part of one of the important components of the drama of the film. And so we have these two, Nathalie Richard and Maggie Cheung, sitting down with an interviewer, and they're being interviewed together. And it takes place sometimes in French, sometimes in English, and Maggie Cheung speaks in English, but sometimes we see her speaking in French as well. Nathalie Richard also speaks maybe primarily in French, but there are some moments where she's speaking in English as well. And this is actually very, very, it's so charming to see their chemistry together. And also this point about languages, I bring it up because this is one of the key components, I think, of this film IRMA VEP, about how it is a film where we have this focus on language and English, speaking English and then speaking French. The Criterion Blu-ray on the back here says in French with English subtitles, but actually that's not quite complete, because it's also a film which has certain English-speaking components, and that's due to the character played by Maggie Cheung. And it's really interesting too, because it has to do, I think, a nuanced conversation about communication and conversation in different languages. And this is brought to the fore in the very way that Nathalie Richard and Maggie Cheung are speaking in this particular interview. And this provides the way in which the anecdote is shared about how Nathalie Richard would try to help Maggie Cheung on the set, on the actual set of making IRMA VEP, because a lot of the times the crew would be speaking in French, and maybe it would be a certain conversation that Maggie Cheung might not necessarily have been able to follow. So then Nathalie Houchard would very kindly provide an explanation. And so that's a conversation about how language is, I think, very important. It's also a way in which the use of language forms a type of means by which people can bond and they can really come together. And so I think this notion of these two and their chemistry, I think, comes off the screen quite nicely, and it's very important in terms of not just of the background of the making of the film IRMA VEP, as we see embodied in this particular interview, but it's also important in terms of the story and in terms of the daily lives of these particular characters, and how what they do when the cameras are off and what they do on their off time, which is also part of this film. And so so in an interesting way, this interview, it serves as an example of the metatextual layering that is totally a part of, or that is totally within the discussion of a film like IRMA VEP. So for this and other reasons, it's a fascinating talk. Again, it's approximately 17 minutes, but please check it out if you can. And then the first disc concludes with its supplements with a 30-minute or approximately 30-minute section, which is called On the Set of IRMA VEP. And this is essentially a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the film IRMA VEP. And so we have the cameraman just shooting on the set and just catching these particular moments as they occur with this camera. And it's assembled for approximately a 30-minute type of assembly. This is also very fascinating on the metatextual level. Well, first of all, let me say first that it's fascinating because it's another glimpse, or it's a glimpse at the behind the scenes as it was happening. What's the phrase? It's the type of the camera is in the room, and it's following the particular conversations or following the particular action, etc. So it is the behind the scenes footage of the making of. So in that way, of course, it's very fascinating. But also, if we think once again about the nature of the film IRMA VEP, and how the film IRMA VEP is a film about a film crew making a film. Well, we have here some behind the scenes footage of the film IRMA VEP, which is about a film crew making a film. So in that way, we have this footage, the behind-the-scenes footage, capturing the film crew that is making a film about a film crew making a film. And so in that way, I think this is yet another example of how meta all this really is, and it's yet another layering that I think is part of the fun of a discussion of a film like IRMA VEP. So please check out this On the Set of IRMA VEP section of the supplements, again on disc 1. It is very fascinating. Now we move on to disc 2 of this particular Criterion Blu-ray release. And on disc 2 we have yet another source of really interesting supplemental features or supplemental materials. The first of which on set disc 2 is in fact one of the sequences or one of the parts of the multi-part epic from 1915-1916 by Louis Feuillade, which is Les Vampires. So what we are getting for the first supplement on the second disc is Les Vampires, the sixth part, which is described here in English as, or the title is translated into English here as Hypnotic Eyes. So once again, we are getting the sixth part of what is ultimately the 10-part serial of Les Vampires. So I should be very clear here. We're not getting the entire 10 parts of Les Vampires. We're getting the sixth part only. So in that way, when you watch this, or if you watch this particular sixth part of Les Vampires for the first time, then there might be some details that might be a little bit hard to follow in terms of the story, because a lot of the story does emerge in, say, the previous 5 parts leading up to part 6. However, it's also serial. It's a story that's told in serial form or serial fashion. So I think for a lot of it, the information is provided very nicely in the way that the film starts, and then it leads into the action. And plus, it can be said also to be its own little set of mini stories or mini adventures within the whole, the context or the grand context or the grand scheme of Les Vampires. So in other words, the point I'm trying to make is it might be it might be overall maybe helpful, or it might be worthwhile, shall I say, to try to watch Les Vampires in its entirety. And in fact, you can get the entire Les Vampires cycle in a separate Kino. For example, this Kino Classics release that I have, which is Les Vampires, all 10 parts or all 10 episodes, including episode 6. So you have the option of finding the entirety of Les Vampires, which is, I think, a very fun time. This is a very exciting films or series of films, or one overall film as it's oftentimes considered. And so if that option is available to you, I strongly recommend that, my friends. But of course, you can still watch episode 6 on its own and still enjoy it, because as I say, it has its own maybe set of story or intrigue that I think can be followed very closely. So in that way, I think it's good to have this 6th part of Les Vampires again, starting the 2nd disc here for the Criterion release. It is also very important too, because although the character of Irma Vep does appear in other parts of the epic Les Vampires, it might be said that the 6th part is the one part, or the part where we get a lot of what is ultimately considered, or can be considered to be, a lot of the iconic images that we see the character of Irma Vep, as played by Musidora, in this particular portion of this. So, and I think it is that imagery that forms the backbone or basis of a lot of the reinvention of that imagery as personified or embodied by Maggie Jung, and what it is she's trying to bring to the modern day role within this particular film within a film that is Irma Vep. So I think that in that way, having the 6th episode is very much providing yet further context into what the making of the film within this film Irma Vep is going for, as well as being itself a great source of entertainment, because you're watching, as I say, a very exciting episode in the overall epic Les Vampires. So this is called in English, under the Criterion release, Hypnotic Eyes. I should say also it does have a different English translation for the Kino Classics release. It is called here The Eyes That Mesmerize. So Hypnotic Eyes here, or Eyes That Mesmerize here. I should say also that compared to the Kino Classics release, this Kino Classics release had the intertitle cards in English, whereas this particular Criterion release has the intertitle cards in the French language. So you're getting the French language with subtitles, electronically imposed subtitles or superimposed subtitles. And also I think let me just take a step back and say this is, I think, a very important textual source for the foundation of Irma Vep, the film, as well as understanding or providing the context for the iconic significance and the legendary status of the role or the image or the icon that is Irma Vep, played by Musidora, that is also now being played by Maggie Jung. And also it is itself a very fun time. So you're getting a lot in one. So in those terms, I would strongly recommend checking out Les Vampires, the 6th episode here, or as I say, if it's possible and if you have the option available to you, watching Les Vampires in its entirety. It is so much fun. So please check it out if you can, at least the 6th part within the Criterion release if you can. And then to continue on, the 2nd disc, we have another supplement. This is described as being from 2013 from Patrick Casals, and this is approximately 1 hour and 7 minutes. And this is Musidora, the 10th Muse. This is an hour, approximately 1 hour documentary about this legend, the actress and also filmmaker, film director, Musidora, and she is, of course, she is a sort of symbol of a lot of things, and the type of the what she represented in terms of representations of sexuality on screen, as well as representations of femininity on screen, as well as the influence of her and the groundbreaking and sort of pioneering nature of her career, not just as a performer, but as a filmmaker and as a director, and as well as in the context of that discussion, speaking specifically about certain films that she appeared in particular, her work with Louis Feuillade. And this brings us to her work in Les Vampires, which of course is yet another embodiment or example of the reasons why Musidora is the legend or icon that she is. And it's legendary. And so we have this documentary that focuses in on or providing us with that context. And there are interesting, really great anecdotes about how these intellectuals, certain artists and thinkers of the day, were just head over heels in love with Musidora and just watching her on screen. And also the title is The 10th Muse. And so there's an interesting significance behind that, which is described in the documentary, particularly towards the end of the documentary. So please check this out as well. Once again, this is so key because it is providing the reference point, the very important reference point in the context of IRMA VEP. IRMA VEP is the character played by Musidora in the original Louis Feuillade Les Vampires, and this is the basis by which Maggie Cheung comes to Paris and plays this particular role. She looks, there are certain ways in which it reminds us of Musidora, but then of course there are other ways where Maggie Cheung makes the role her own, or makes the look her own in her own legendary, iconic way. But at the same time, it is always, I think, it's very valuable to recall or to be reminded of the Musidora in 1915, 1916, and this is the basis for the IRMA VEP character to begin with. So to have that particular context provided with the inclusion of the 6th episode of Les Vampires is really it's wonderful. And to add to that, to have this documentary on Musidora and her significance in cinematic history is essential. So this is a great duo of supplements. You have Les Vampires, and then you have the documentary on Musidora. So please check this out if you can. This is really wonderful, exciting stuff. Again, approximately 1 hour and 7 minutes from 2013. And then we have another conversation, a one-on-one conversation, and this is with Olivier Assayas once again. And here he is giving a type of talk or discussion or speech, which is called State of Cinema, Cinema in the Present Tense, and this is described as being from June 2020. It is approximately 46 minutes. And here, Assayas is delivering these remarks, which could be said to be about what he conceives as being the present state of cinema. And when he talks about what is described as the present state of cinema, he talks about it in the context of quote-unquote art cinema, but also he talks about it in the context of quote-unquote mainstream cinema. And there are certain ways in which he sees or he identifies, say, certain crises of cinema, or the modes of artistic expression, and the certain challenges that he sees that such expressions, or people that are making such expressions, or that endeavor to make such expressions, are confronted with in the context of the modern day industry. So this is not a specific discussion per se on his work, his filmography, or the film IRMA VEP, but rather it is his take on the film industry, the state of the modern film industry. And I think in that way, this is, of course, very valuable and very insightful. For one thing, of course, we are getting direct comments from Olivier Assayas, who is also speaking from his perspective as a filmmaker and also as an admirer of cinema from the film critic perspective as well. So this is very important. Also, it does recall, or we are reminded about the film IRMA VEP. And one of the levels in which the film IRMA VEP can be said to be operating on is a type of critique or discussion of the state of modern day French cinema, or modern day cinema in general. And this discussion of art versus commerce, or maybe take the verses out and say art and commerce, or it depends on, maybe you prefer verses. In any event, this idea of the challenges of artistic expression in this commercialized context. And so I think, thinking about the film IRMA VEP in those terms, this conversation from Olivier Assayas is very valuable indeed. So please check it out if you can. Once again, approximately 46 minutes. And then we continue on with a 4-minute type of visual homage or portrait, if you will, which is called Man Yuk, a portrait of Maggie Cheung. And this is described as being from 1997, again, approximately 4 minutes, for the Fondation Cartier pour l'Art Contemporain. And this is, as I indicated, a type of visual representation, an artistic portrait, if you will, which is very stylistically presented. And it is using images of the actor and sometimes very intimate portrait, of kind of a day-to-day look, but it's using a sense of the swirl and color and the image in a way that is very arresting and quite remarkable. And there's also a sense of the type of feel or aura, shall we say, as embodied with this particular short work. Again, Maggie Cheung is essential in terms of what she brings in terms of her Hong Kong cinema legendary status, in terms of her relationship with Olivier Assayas, in terms of her the look and the feel of the film, which is, of course, she is at the center of this because she plays the character that is trying to play this character of IRMA VEP for the modern era, essentially. And so it all hinges essentially on her and how the world reacts or responds to her, and what she says about the world in return. So, and in that way, a portrait like this, the portrait of Maggie Cheung, is so wonderful to have. So please check this one out too if you can. Once again, 4 minutes. And then the second disc concludes with a black and white rushes section. This is approximately 3 minutes. There is a section of this film, IRMA VEP, that takes place in a very important way in black and white. And that goes, again, to the way in which this film is trying to create its own a cinematic language using the modern day setting, but relying upon the homage or the remake status, its relationship with the Feuillade work Les Vampires. And so the black and white is very critical in that way. And so we have this black and white section of the film, and so we have the black and white rushes, which we assume are rushes that are associated with this particular section, the final version of this film. So again, the black and white is very important, and then to get the rushes of this, I think, adds further insight into the look and feel of this particular section. Again, approximately 3 minutes. And then we have this particular physical media release presentation itself from Criterion, this very, I think, clever use of the font, this handwritten, almost sense of the creative and chaotic all at once, and then Maggie Jung, of course, adorning the top portion of this, and then something here that it looks like reminds us of something to do with maybe the clapperboard or the film. Again, this is a film about the film industry, and it's in black and white too, which is, again, a very important artistic choice in terms of certain key sections of the film and how it perhaps is meant to remind us of the links to cinematic past and silent cinema, as well as creating its own modern-day cinematic language. So it's all there at once. So this is, I think, a really wonderful and clever embodiment of this. Art directors Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, and designer Gillian Adele. So I think it's a really interesting, wonderful design, and just it carries over into the back there. And then I've taken the liberty already of taking out the insert, which is included with this. Excuse me. It is one of the fold-out types. I'm very pleased that the art design with this type of the use of the cutout imagery motif and the use of this handwriting creative chaos or chaotic creativity, I think, is carried through with this very well. So I like how the art from the cover is consistent with the insert. Just again, I'm not a big fan of the insert. I like the staple book type, so I wish this had the staple book type, but oh well. And then we have the essay, which is by Aliza Ma, and this is Film in Flux, another wonderful essay. Please check it out if you can. I really enjoy the essays immensely, and I find them to be so filled with so much information and so much great insight. Ma's essays here in particular is wonderful because she goes into the details of Olivier Assayas' career and also the details of IRMA VEP and the images and how it's a play on reality and fiction, and how this is also a perfect fit with a discussion of the cinema, film industry, and also the type of, shall we say, the links to the cinematic past that also are very important, as well as other points. And so please check this out. I think the essays are so worth it. Just note, it probably is, it might be best to watch the film first and then read the essay, because oftentimes the essays do speak to specific details and plot points. So once you've seen the film, check out the essays, including, for example, this essay, Film in Flux, because it's really, really worth it, and a lot of great insight. So please check it out if you can. So that is the Criterion release of IRMA VEP from this year. I think it is a wonderful example of the power and the creativity of the cinema of Olivier Assayas, and also it speaks to so many things and so many levels and so many different parts of cinematic history, past and present and future, in fact, as well as being a really well-told story of people on a set who are just trying to get to know each other, both personally and professionally, as well as the play on the film within the film premise, which is also played upon, I dare say, by the Criterion Collection itself with the choice of supplements. So you get 3 levels or more, film within a film, or films talking about films within a film, or films covering film crews that are making films. Films covering film crews that are making films about film crews making a film. So I think in that way we get a lot of playful, creative twists and turns, as well as some real energetic jolts of visual style and flair, and also a sense and scope of history, the sociological implications, as well as the roots of cinematic history. Not it's we have the roots, say, or the discussion or concerns of French cinema, but also silent cinema, and also Hong Kong cinema, and also cinema writ large. And it's all here wrapped in this this truly dynamic, energetic, engaging work, which is called IRMA VEP. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.